let us look into the future and visualize how this proposed plan would work. Here is one of the many buildings in which tomorrow the General Assembly of the United Nations will be waging not war but peace. Entering will be representatives of all the nations dedicated to peace, large and small, meeting together in sovereign equality. These men and women will be charged by their countries with the job of charting a course that will improve economic and social conditions and lessen the injustices and the frictions that have been responsible for wars. This is not the capital of some super-state trying to rule the earth. It represents the mind and conscience of the world. It is the watchtower over tomorrow. This is not the capital of some super-state trying to rule the earth. This is not the capital of some super-state trying to rule the earth. This is not the capital of some super-state trying to rule the earth. This is not the capital of some super-state trying to rule the earth. This is not the capital of some super-state trying to rule the earth.
It is the accessibility to advanced technologies that will lead to solutions, hopefully for the whole world. I passionately believe technology revolutionizes and improves systems. This is why in Malta we have launched ourselves as the blockchain island, by being the first jurisdiction worldwide to regulate this new technology that previously existed in a legal vacuum. Blockchain makes cryptocurrencies, the inevitable future of money, more transparent, since it helps filter good business from bad business. But these distributed ledger technologies can do much more. It can provide solutions to healthcare systems where patients have real ownership of their medical records. Emissions trading systems can be taken to the next level. We can help verify that humanitarian assistance is reaching its intended destination. We can make sure that nobody is deprived of their legitimate property because of compromised data. Corporations will be able to become more accountable to their shareholders. States will need to move from hoarding information on citizens to regulating an environment where citizens trust the handling of their own data. These are just a few ways how we can counter regressive and reactionary politics. This forum shows that we stand to gain through dialogue and cooperation, which will always triumph over division and self-absorption. Because in unity, we do and we can have hope. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for having me. So pleasure to be here to talk to you about the book that I just published, Blockchain and the New Architecture of Trust. The starting point is that we are today living through a global crisis of trust. Trust in companies, trust in governments, trust in the media, by many measures have been plummeting. The Edelman Group does an annual trust survey of people all around the world that they release at the World Economic Forum in Davos. And as you see, in 2019, their finding was that only 1 in 5 people, 20% of people, believe that the system is working for them. And they found that the gap in trust between the elites and the mass population was the highest they've ever seen. And I don't need to tell you this. In fact, you might not be surprised to know there are even some people who don't trust large Silicon Valley tech platforms anymore. This is the world that we live in today. So the question is, what's the answer? Well, you probably know I'm going to tell you. The answer is blockchain. Right? Got a problem with fake news? Blockchain. Got a problem with insecure voting systems? Put it on the blockchain. Finance industry too concentrated? Well, we'll just blow it all up with blockchain. Now, about a year and a half ago, when I was writing this book, and we were in the midst of the Bitcoin and cryptocurrency bubble, there were a lot more people speaking in these kind of hype-laden terms, saying, okay, blockchain is the solution, whatever the problem is. Now, with the subsequent cryptocurrency crash and the fact that many of these predictions have not materialized as fast as people thought, now there's a great deal of skepticism. I run into many more people saying, is this real at all? Was this all just hype? Is there anything that blockchain is useful for?
Facebook going full crypto, unveiling its new digital currency Libra today, the start of what the social giant calls the Internet of Money to rebuild a reliable and global financial infrastructure.
They're not called Zuckerbucks, but Facebook just reinvented digital money. Facebook's Libra cryptocurrency will launch early next year, and it's more like PayPal than Bitcoin. It's designed to be easy enough for everyone to use, but it's still complicated to understand, so I'm going to break it down for you nice and simple. Libra is like cash that lives inside your phone. You'll be able to buy Libra through Libra wallet apps on your phone or from some local grocery and convenience stores. You cash in your local currency like dollars and get nearly the same number of Libra coins, which are represented by this wavy 3-line emoji instead of the dollar symbol. But first, you'll have to verify your identity with a photo ID. You'll then be able to spend your Libra while online shopping, or potentially pay for things like Uber's or your subscription for Spotify, since those companies have partnered with Facebook to make Libra popular. Since it's almost free to digitally move Libra from one account to another, you won't have to pay high credit card processing fees that can add almost 4% to your total. And some Libra wallet apps and shops will give bonus discounts or free coins for signing up and paying with Libra. You will be able to send and request money from friends like you would with Venmo or PayPal, and it's easy to send Libra just like a message. In fact, Facebook is building its own Libra wallet app called Calibra that will live inside of WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, and its own standalone app. You won't have to attach your real name and identity to any of your payments, but they will be public. Facebook knows it's a little bit creepy, and you probably don't want it spying on what you buy. So Facebook set up a new company called Calibra that will keep all of your financial data separate from your Facebook profile. That means it can't use your transaction data to target you with ads, reorder your newsfeed, or sell your info to marketers.
There is no universally accepted definition of cryptocurrency, but the majority of them share several key attributes that attracted many people to start using them. Traditionally, cryptocurrencies operate on blockchains. Blockchain is a public ledger of transactions that are chronologically organized in time-specific blocks. For example, in Bitcoin network, a new block of transactions is created every 10 minutes. Usually, these blocks are created by a process called mining, solving computationally difficult problems and validating transactions broadcasted by its users. Miners get rewarded with coins for contributing their computing power to the network. Most cryptocurrencies are traditionally completely decentralized and free from any authority. Every user can create their wallet or as many wallets as they like and store cryptocurrency that they can transact without any restrictions. There are no banks or governments that can dictate how someone can and can't use their digital money. This makes cryptocurrencies very attractive to free speech advocates as they are extremely censorship resistant. Libra is going to have a central authority, Libra Association. The Libra Association is formed by a small group of founding members. Currently there are 28 members, and the association hopes to have 100 of them by the initial launch date. The criteria to become a member are rather exclusive. Your business needs to have a market value greater than $1 billion, reach at least 20 million people a year, and be ranked among the top 100 industry leaders by lists like the Fortune 500. Charities and academic institutions are also welcome to join the association, but they too have to be from the world's top 100. Among the members currently are payment gatekeepers like PayPal, Visa or MasterCard, tech billionaires from Facebook, Spotify and Uber, cryptocurrency services like Coinbase or Zappo, or a venture capitalist Union Square Ventures. All members have equal vote, but for now, Facebook claims leadership in the development of the platform. Most blockchains are permissionless. That means anybody can use them and run its own full copy of the network without needing to ask for permission from anybody. Everybody can observe the whole blockchain from the beginning to the present time. It is maintained by people constantly connecting and updating their copies of the blockchain to the network. There are no central servers, as the whole blockchain runs as an interconnection of its copies, also called nodes, directly beaming transaction records into the internet. This decentralized structure makes blockchains extremely resistant to attacks. Not all blockchains are permissionless though. Libra will start as a permissioned blockchain. Only the members of the Libra Association will be privileged to run nodes and validate Libra transactions. No one will be allowed to mint or burn Libra without the permission of the association. Although Facebook promises Libra will eventually become a permissionless blockchain, there is no indication as to when this is going to happen specifically and how they are planning to go about it. It is worth noting that no permissioned blockchain has ever succeeded in transitioning into a permissionless blockchain. The vast majority of blockchains are transparent. That means, with the exception of a few obfuscated blockchains, using a cryptocurrency requires broadcasting your entire transaction history to their ledger. In fact, they are so transparent that some people maintain so-called rich lists, rankings of addresses holding the most amount of coins. This is a huge privacy and fungibility issue. Every coin on the network can be traced back to its very origin of creation, and all future spending can also be recorded. This not only gives observers power to collect transaction records of everyone on the blockchain, it also enables them to freeze certain addresses or block use of particular coins to prevent them from being moved across exchanges. Libra blockchain is also going to be transparent, but the pool of validator nodes is only open for the members of the Libra Association. This will allow a group of 100 unaccountable organizations to observe and track all transactions on the network with full decision authority to freeze or blacklist certain addresses or transactions. Whatever happens on the network will not be open for public scrutiny, but will develop strictly behind closed door of billionaire-class members of the Libra Association. However, making blockchains transparent is not a requirement. Privacy-focused cryptocurrency Monero already obfuscates its blockchain by default and automatically conceals transaction amounts and address balances. The level of privacy by design of a blockchain is thus purely a choice of its developers. So if Facebook wanted to, they would make Libra blockchain more private. But for most people anyway, using Libra will be synchronous with using a range of Facebook apps like the Messenger, WhatsApp or Instagram. This deep integration will make it easy for Facebook to identify and continuously track financial behavior of the vast majority, if not all, Libra users.
There is another dimension. If you tap into that dimension, you can obtain supernatural power. And that supernatural power allowed the ancient builders to build the Temple of Giza and the Colossus of Rhodes and these marvelous things, and to come up with so much of the ideas, A squared plus B squared equals C squared. The ancient mysteries, the ancient concepts, many of them carried forward, which we utilize in our everyday society. But they came from the other dimension. They did not come from the God that we worship. They came from his counterpart, the angel, who is Lucifer. The secret of the Kabbalah, out of the Gnostics, out of the Knights Templar, and of the Rosicrucians, and of the Illuminati, and of the upper echelons of Masonry, of which most Masons have no idea. But the fact is that there is another God, and that Satan is the God we should worship. Why? Why? Because he gives us all sorts of power. He makes no demands on us. There are no restrictions on what we do. I mean, after all, the God of the Bible has the 10 Commandments. Thou shalt not do this, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's property. But Lucifer gives you total freedom. There are no restrictions on what you do. You can do whatever you want to. But the problem is, of course, it leads to moral anarchy, and it leads again to moral chaos. And as we said earlier, when liberty leads to a loss of order, then the demand for order leads to the loss of liberty. And these people are really waiting for the coming of the Antichrist to rule the world.
So back in June, I came across these videos on the United Nations UN Web TV of this Blockchain for Impact 2019 Global Summit. Frontier Technologies Powering Blockchain, and they had a number of sessions and panels and talking about all these different topics. And a lot of it wasn't surprising because it's the same sort of Agenda 21 spectrum of issues that they're pushing. But it was eye-opening in the sense that I did not know that there was multiple countries, these micro-countries, who are introducing various blockchain legislations into their government. And Malta being the first one, sort of the leader. And then in this one panel discussion, they have a guy from Liechtenstein and a guy from Marshall Islands, each talking about the various things they've been doing in their respective countries to make blockchain more integrated with government processes. And apparently even the Marshall Islands came out with their own cryptocurrency that is at the same time an accepted world currency, a fiat currency, called the Sovereign. And that's been around for a year, and I hadn't even heard of that. So essentially, what you have is all these, you have the UN pushing regulated blockchain adoption, obviously, with all this smart city and Agenda 21 rhetoric all interwoven with it. And then you have these micro-countries, implementing blockchain legislation, which of course, if you step back and think about it for any amount of time, you realize that there's really no incentive for a country of any size, but particularly one that small, to make that kind of a move, unless they're anticipating it being something that's going to be adopted on a worldwide scale. And of course, that is the entire point, right? So you have all these little countries that are essentially serving as little test models, test cases, where they're tackling different problems and different challenges with how do you implement this in a regulated way. How do you bridge the gap between the unregulated crypto space and making it something more mainstream and more integrated with the current banking system? So of course you can see all those pieces and how they're kind of paving the way for that eventuality. And then lo and behold, surprise, surprise, Facebook announces they're putting out their own quote-unquote cryptocurrency, which even the mainstream media openly acknowledges is technically not really like a cryptocurrency as much as just a payment system similar to PayPal and things like that. And of course, PayPal is part of this Libra association, which has companies like Visa and PayPal and Uber and big heavy hitters who are all part of this quote-unquote cryptocurrency, which is essentially, in reality, nothing more than just a digital aggregation of all the current fiat currency in the world. And so in that sense, it literally is a one-world currency, if this comes into being, because it's not just tagged to the dollar or tagged to any specific world currency. It's tagged to, like I said, the aggregation of all of them. So, part of their whole pitch is that unlike all these conventional cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum, which are so volatile and they fluctuate in value too much to be used as a realistic currency, by the mass majority of people. So there's this whole push to create stable coins, a stable digital currency, which of course, that's what they're claiming to do because it's based on all the economies of the world. And the difficult question with talking about a topic like this is like how much of this really needs to be spelled out. I think for a lot of people it's quite transparently obvious what this is all about and where it's all going, and yet for plenty of people it perhaps is not. And so, I'm leery of erring too far in either direction, assuming that people can understand where this is all going or not. I'm not saying that this Libra, is the one world currency per se, but it is a one world currency. It's effectively creating that stage of the game. And of course, the whole thing is that they know that in any way to roll out a digital wallet, right, that's attached to all the currencies of the world like this, all the fiat currencies, it suddenly raises all these legal issues, this legal vacuum that the Prime Minister of Malta was talking about, which of course was the whole reason why so many people who invested in, mining and buying Bitcoin and creating that for the past 10 years since the release of the so-called white paper. We just celebrated the 10-year anniversary just this summer here. And now Bitcoin, primarily, because that was the term everyone kind of learned at first. Bitcoin as a currency essentially served the purpose of exposing the world to the idea, making it a household name, a universally understood concept. So the code for the blockchain digital ledger concept was released anonymously, and it's caught on by, just at the beginning, just only people who were really into computer programming, and slowly builds into this thing. And that's what I think is so fascinating about so much of this, is that blockchain wasn't forced upon anybody. The idea of cryptocurrency wasn't this top-down thing, but it's come about in this allegedly grassroots way, where we, the people, built it. And so it all essentially amounts to is, of course, the fact that if you understand how blockchain and cryptocurrency works, that they can actually track the life of a coin through every transaction, which means they can track each node in the life of that coin, each node being an entity, whether a person or a corporation. It essentially allows the tracking of every single purchase from every single individual or corporation, which of course they can probably do for the most part now through the conventional means, but there's still quite a bit of financial activity that is not tracked. And so how ironic is it that, of course, this technology that was pushed forward for 10 years by presumably ordinary citizens who bought into the idea because of believing that it would be some sort of alternative or escape from the central banking cartel, has in fact paved the way for an even more pervasive panopticon, essentially the second to last step on the successive ladder of transitioning to the mark of the beast system. Because of course, with each new technology that they roll out that will supposedly solve all kinds of problems and, make things more efficient and easier and all this stuff, in the name of convenience, of course always introduces new problems that have to be solved through legislation and oversight. And of course that's what cryptocurrency has coincidentally created, right? It simultaneously showed the world that it is possible to create a system where you can send money to people just like sending a text. It's that simple. But of course now it's being used by organized crime and the terrorists and all that, so it has to be, we have to have some sort of oversight. And that, of course, is the whole argument, or part of the argument, that this Kevin Werbach guy, there'll be a link for his full presentation, and definitely worth listening to if you're interested in this whole development, this whole topic. A pretty interesting figure himself. That was a Google talk that he's given. So Google wants to promote, just put it all on the blockchain. But, of course, there's really no such thing as truly decentralized currency. So he's essentially there to argue in very, down-to-earth, pragmatic. He's not a super divisive, bombastic guy. He's just a very, reasoned. He's a law professor, I believe. Yeah, professor of legal studies and business ethics at the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. And he was the founder of the Supernova Group, a technology consulting and events firm. A longtime thought leader in communications and internet policy, he served on the Obama administration's presidential transition team and later was an expert advisor on broadband issues at both the Federal Communications Commission and the U.S. Department of Commerce. So he's not just some professor somewhere, he's been pretty plugged in. He's a pioneer in emerging fields such as gamification, applying digital game design principles to business, algorithmic accountability, and blockchain governance. with his current focus on the business and legal implications of distributed ledger technology, he heads the Crypto Regulation Initiative of the Zicklin Center for Business Ethics Research, bringing together regulators, experts, and business leaders from around the world. So I haven't even looked into the Zicklin Center for Business Ethics Research, but that would probably be interesting to read about as well. So he just released this book called Blockchain and the New Architecture of Trust. And it was kind of chilling in a different way, because he's laying, essentially what he's doing is kind of breaking down all of these pragmatic issues that, of course, blockchain and cryptocurrency pose. Well, he's an advocate for crypto and Bitcoin, but it's going to have some sort of regulation. It's going to have some kind of centralization, and it's basically that's the whole argument. And so, it's not a big deal. And again, like I said, it hopefully shouldn't be something I have to beat to death to explain why that narrative is now being pushed by Google. Because, of course, they're all on board with crypto. And so we'll see what happens. The Libra is it's being debated in Congress right now, basically. And there's probably going to be more of just a big circus show leading up to that. So that, now we've got a year of it's going to be debated, or maybe not. Who knows how much attention people are going to pay to this. It doesn't seem like it's even getting that much attention right now, which is odd. But there is, of course, so much other crazy stuff going on all the time that people are kind of focused on a million different things and hating Trump or defending Trump or, just all this distraction nonsense. But since I've been looking into this over the past couple of months now, it's been something that I've just been really wanting to talk about, but also not want to talk about, because I think there's kind of just this overall weight to it, in the sense that it's nothing really shocking or new, but the fact that it's like, okay, this is really happening, it's kind of one of those things that makes you stop and go, yeah, this is how late in the game we're starting to get now. And I think a lot of people, even in the truth community, quote unquote, for whatever reason, kind of don't want to really look at like how fast things are progressing in this way. Because, for so many years, right, with Alex Jones and all this stuff, it was all about the big impending financial collapse and, the lights going out. And when in reality, the prospect of just a transition that was not forced upon people or created through some sort of, crash of the dollar, but rather just a gradual transition. That's not a scenario that a lot of people have really spent a lot of time preparing for, like mentally. So many people have been preparing physically for, a big, huge crash, anarchy in the streets and all that. But the whole agenda to create a one-world digital currency is predicated upon the infrastructure that's been painstakingly built over decades, hundreds of years, really, when you think about the entire industrial revolution and the scientific revolution and all the progression of scientism to get us to where we are now. And I do believe that this blockchain concept very possibly did not originate in the mind of a human or multiple humans, coders. This idea of a Satoshi. Who is Satoshi? He's the guy who supposedly anonymously released the code online for blockchain 10 years ago. That's called the white paper. So now Facebook has put out their own quote-unquote white paper. It's like a little term now for their cryptocurrency, which apparently is going to use blockchain for the tracking purposes, but not for any of the other reasons that crypto has been championed for the past 10 years. So of course it's being totally usurped, quote-unquote, or co-opted. Oh no, but for me, I don't know how to look at it any other way than that was the intention all along. It seems pretty obvious that this was thought out, certainly to the spiritual forces that are really orchestrating all this over thousands of years. And it is pretty insane when I think about just the whole concept of the digital ledger. They want to make it not just about money, of course, but about all data, like everything, tracking things that previously were just not even trackable. about your medical history, about your, your location, like everything you do online, having developing a type of social credit score. I mean, that's what gamification essentially does. When you're applying those to the business world, which of course then translates into the consumer realm, which is all of us. So we're all being gamified. We're all being basically trained to try and, even when you go to every store now and they always want to give you a rewards card, right? And you build up points and then you get free stuff. I mean, that's gamification, where there's all these little metrics and all these little point systems. And so you have in reality, that's sort of like, it's this miniaturized, currencies within a currency. They're creating little microcurrencies, little, just like points in a video game that you can turn into money or vice versa. This has been going on all these levels to where, the one world currency is not just like a one unit. Currency means it flows so that it all flows seamlessly. So in reality, even though, there's a one world digital economy now, and it's going to be a one world system, there'll be more currencies, quote unquote, than ever before. Essentially, it turns every human being into its own currency. And it really is the commodification of human beings, which is really chilling, because it ties back into Revelation, buying of the souls and bodies of men. But it's amazing that it's being built by the people, by all of us participating in it. It's not being forced upon anyone. And so many people in the truth movement talk about, the enslavement of humanity and the overlords and all these things being pushed on us and mind control. And it's this totalitarianism, which of course is all true, but to properly really understand what's going on, you have to understand that it's a totalitarianism that's being built through our own idolatry. And that's what I think Stan Monteith in that clip. There will be a link for that as well. I mean, it's a 2-hour presentation and it's fantastic. It's from 2007, but it's actually in a lot of ways probably more relevant today than even when he gave that talk 12 years ago. I miss Dr. Stan. But when he's saying, when liberty results in the loss of order, the demand for order results in the loss of liberty. Right? And so, I mean, you see this played out again and again in history, where people rallying behind something, whether it was communism or scientism or capitalism, when you put your faith in that thing, in that idea, and then everyone comes together and builds this or builds that, it always ends up in the same position, right? Things always pan out the same way when humans are trying to solve all our own problems and rely on our own collective ingenuity and moral compass, because there, as everyone knows, there's no such thing as even a basic moral compass. Those good old-fashioned Christian values that used to still permeate society, even on a second-hand level, are just completely gone, and we live in a moral vacuum. But this whole blockchain idea, putting everything on the blockchain, is addressing this alleged problem of a legal vacuum. That's really what. All we need is a lot more oversight. All we need is to centralize and to root out the corruption and root out, blockchain turns bad business into good business, right? Because it's ridiculous. Why is there bad business when you're trying to argue that a distributed ledger system will prevent everyone from making bad deals or lying? It's ridiculous. If you can just have perfect record keeping, then people won't lie, right? People won't try and lie. It's nonsense. But essentially it's creating, a digital ledger for everything in a commodified manner, in an earthly marketplace of humanity kind of way, which is completely inverted. And just like so many other things where Satan just copycats the things of God and perverts them and warps them and turns them into some sort of idolatrous, blasphemous thing. And the Bible says that, when we stand before the throne, the books will be opened. And everything, everything that was in the darkness will be brought into the light. And every single man or woman who ever lived will be called into account. There will be an accounting. And so many people are just repulsed by that idea. that God is just keeping a record book of everything. And of course, ultimately what matters in that moment, because all of our record books are drastically short of the standard of holiness that God demands. Without the blood of Jesus, you've got no hope. But even though those of us who are in Jesus and are saved by grace through faith in his death and resurrection, even the things that we invest in now are kept track of, in a way. That they there is a heavenly economy, so to speak. A lot of people say that Jesus talked about money in a lot of his parables. They like to point that out, usually because they want to talk about money or giving. But reality is true. He talked about money a lot, but really what he's talking about is investment. And that's what's interesting, is that this whole system that we see being created, that's just deeper and deeper, the whole concept of investment. Like the way the system works is that you have to keep investing yourself more and more aspects of your life, just your own private self. Like that, these companies, they're putting microphones into everyone's home, and people are paying for it. People are having conversations with their spying devices, talking to them like some little robot pet. I mean, it's crazy. And so much stuff that has come out now that, if you said it 10 years ago or even 5 years ago, suggesting that Facebook was tracking everyone's, all that stuff has now come out in these quote-unquote scandals, and it comes and goes, and Facebook's still here, and people get outraged on Twitter for a few days, and things just keep moving forward. So I think the question of what are you really investing in terms of how do you measure not yourself, because your worth in Christ Jesus, all our worth comes from him. It doesn't come from the wealth we accumulate during our earthly life, or the achievements and accolades through worldly systems and things. It's defined by our Father and by the Son, by the Spirit that is put within us. And you start thinking in eternal terms, an investment of your life, not just your money, but your time and your focus and your energy and your heart. What are the things that really matter when all is said and done? And you just see this gap widening, right? The things that Jesus talks about in terms of investing in the kingdom of heaven, and the way the world is going in terms of investing in the future of humanity, and investing in, reaching the third world, all these unbanked people, that's a big concern, all these people who are still yet unbanked. What does that tell you? What it means to be banked. You're in the bank. You're in the vault. But we're not, and these things come and go, but, if you can't be willing to let go at some point, or be willing to say, no, this is a tower being built by the hubris and rebelliousness of men. But I really think that we are getting very, very close. If the Libra does get introduced next year, then it's going to instantly, because of the size, even if 10% of the people who use Facebook, start changing their, because that's the thing, it's instantly like dollars, yen, the yuan, every currency in the world starts pouring into this reserve for their Calibra reserve, I think that's what they call it. Calibra is the name of the wallet. They created this, we know you don't trust Facebook with your finances, so we just created a smaller company that's totally separate. So, man, it's almost insulting, right? That, they would just say that, be like, yeah, and most people will just be like, okay, separate company. Oh, man. So, yeah, it's pretty sobering. Maybe that's why I don't even want to think about it some days, because it's all happening so fast. And of course, we haven't even gotten into quantum computing and how that's going to play into all this, but I read stuff about that pretty much every day. And yeah, it's It's enough to just make your brain ooze out of your ear, because how much of it is just made up baloney, and how much, obviously they're going to build it. You know, they're going to come out with something and be like, this is a quantum computer and it can do this a million times faster, and it'll be a game changer. And we've already talked about that in terms of the spiritual realm and how that integrates into all this stuff we're talking about here. And it's pretty dang dark. But at the same time, when you look at it all and you realize, you know, it reminds you that the Bible really is true. And all these things that were talked about 2,000 years ago, that were first revealed to John and all throughout the scripture, are happening right before our eyes. And the Bible is true, which means that Jesus is alive, and his words are trustworthy, and he is the one that we can put all our trust in. Because the things that happen in this life are quite short in the grand scheme of things, and we have hope. Because our treasure is not in this world. So I know this was kind of long, but thanks for listening. Thanks for all of you who've been supporting this channel on Patreon and through PayPal. I really appreciate it very, very much. And I appreciate, more than anything, just getting to know so many of you and interact with you and, walk through this time with other people who see what's going on and can be an encouragement to me. Because it does get very, very lonely and difficult sometimes when, most of us, the majority of the people in our immediate circles, do not see things progressing the way that, we see. And that's a very difficult thing to sustain over, as years go by in that kind of place. Maintaining your relationships with people who, they may see this side or that side, but looking at the whole scope of things is understandably, it's too much for most people. It feels like it's too much for me so much of the time, and I'd love to just, have a blue pill day and mow the lawn and, just not think about this kind of stuff. But I am thankful, I think. I wouldn't have it any other way, because it does ultimately drive me to look to Jesus and just not put my faith in all these things that are very tempting sometimes to want to try and find some kind of, worldly success, and whatever that means. Of course, it's all just a chasing after the wind, really. The things of this life. So I'm just going to end with this hymn that I came across recently, and I just keep listening to it, and the words are pretty awesome. So, thank you.
How deep the Father's love for us, how vast beyond I will not boast in anything. No gift, no power, no wisdom, but I will boast in Jesus Christ, His death and resurrection. Why should I gain from His reward? I cannot give an answer, but this I know with all my heart: His wounds have paid my ransom. What should I gain from this reward? I cannot give an answer, but this I know with all my heart: His